Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and perhaps one of the greatest political satirists of all time, Mort Sahl.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Happy to have you with us on Mad Mad World of Comedy. Mort, your humor, as I noticed, and everybody has noticed for years, is directed to the political world and the people that are in the news. I mean, I think, well, not only myself, many people think that you're as fresh as today's newspaper. Do you believe that's true?
There's a friend that, well, I used to work on a Jerry Lewis show on this network, and Harry Crane, who was our head writer, used to say, you appeal to people who read newspapers, and Jerry Lewis appeals to those who deliver them. And after that, he was replaced on a program. No, I appreciate it. I'm only kidding. I appreciate it.
Well, do you feel that you're as fresh as today's newspaper? I mean, well, with the current events. And
you have to move very fast, Milton, or life will outdistance art, as S.J. Perelman says. And because now I read it straight, and the people accept it as creative. And if I invent something out of my imagination, they say, well, you know, it must be credible. Because they're used to, they're desensitized. You know, I mean, there's very little that can shock an audience. I was on the Tonight Show, and a girl was on there who admittedly was bisexual. Because you have to have something interesting to get on the show. You can't be a performer or anything. So she said she's bisexual, and I thought the show was going to come down. I thought they were going to close the network. And afterwards, Johnny Carson said to me, why do you think people aren't shocked by that? So you have to look at it, you know, in a detached sense. They're not shocked because of 12 years of Vietnam, 2 devaluations of the dollar, the whole period on campus where the kid became a junkie and the library was on fire and people were demonstrating, and the Cambodian incursion, and Ralph Nader with your seatbelts, and it's too much air in your hot dog, and it's too much mercury in your swordfish, and you can't get any gas, so what's one more bisexual? I mean, that's, you know, that's what I try to tell them. But, you know, Freud said that the real job of a satirist was, a social satirist, was, for instance, if the world was ending and we're only you and you were my advocate, as you have been for so many years, that I would oppose you, because that's my job.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And that's, you know, and you have been for many years. I remember, you know, you told the most perfect joke I ever heard. It's a perfect joke.
What was that?
Milton used to give me a lot of jokes, too. He'd come up to me over the years and you'd say, remember you'd say to me, here's something I can't use, you can use it. It was when we were having all the trouble equaling the Russians in space. And, you told me to tell the audience, and I did with great success subsequently, that we caught some, we're giving the Russians our secrets so that they can be 2 years behind. I think that was a joke. That was one.
That's
no,
true.
your perfect joke was Bishop Sheen.
What?
Bishop Sheen and I have the same sponsor, Sky Chief.
All right.
That's perfect.
Well, we made a new concept of that joke. Said Bishop Sheen has got a new sponsor. He's going back on television for Miracle Whip. So that's Mort, where would you say that your humor comes from?
Well, unlikely places. Sometimes it comes from the audience. I'm reminded, seeing you again, when I was at the Crescendo here in Hollywood, which is a club that a lot of you like to hang out in. A lot of bargains. All you could eat for $100. Remember? And Milton used to come in every night to see Lenny Bruce and myself. And I remember when Lenny was on, if anybody talked, you were like a DI, you know, in boot camp. You kept everybody quiet.
Oh, me?
And I used to, you remember how I used to rush? I don't do it anymore. I'd rush past the laughs, and
you still
I'd always say to the audience, right. So Milton came in a half hour before I went on. He got 400 people there at the opening. And he talked to them. I didn't know what about. I found out very soon. I came out and I said, you all know about the president's trip to the West Coast, right? And you got up and 400 people said, wrong.
Remember very well. Well, now for the question I just asked, where does your humor come? What do you mean from the audience? What do you mean by that?
It comes, I pay attention to a lot of people I admire in political life. And I quote them because the byproduct of their viewpoint, the irony they see in the urban situation, makes for great jokes. And the audience hasn't always heard them, and I often repeat them. I'm taken with a sense of humor.
Let me understand this, Mort. You quote from the people in the government, you mean? Or
Sure.
whatever people may be?
Example is the best way to go. Senator Eugene McCarthy said, when he described President Nixon, he said, if you were drowning 20 feet from shore, President Nixon would throw you a 15-foot rope.
Hold it, wait for the laugh, please. I'm still teaching you, don't overlap, wait till the laugh subsides. Go.
And Henry Kissinger would go on television and point out that the president had met you more than halfway. That's what
Some more quotes. I want to hear some more. From people that you admire or don't admire.
Yeah, Adlai Stevenson. Richard Nixon said in 1964, he said that he thought that Norman Vincent Peale was literally the voice of God on earth. And Adlai Stevenson said, I find the Apostle Paul appealing and the Apostle Peale appalling. Whatever your view is, you know, it catches the moment. Or Kennedy. Kennedy was on a campaign train, Jack Kennedy, in the San Joaquin Valley, and it was about 130 degrees, and Governor Brown took off his coat and handed it to what he thought was a Secret Service agent, the governor of California. And it was a farmer. And when the train pulled out of the station, he said, Senator Kennedy, a guy back there who was getting smaller, the train was, he said, he's got my coat, what should we do? And Kennedy said, well, based on the speed of the train, I think you should throw him your pants because I'm not coming back. It's great, you know? That's, you know, that's essence.
Among the comedians, this question has started many debates that could last for hours. How shall I say this? Did Lenny Bruce really have to work with obscenities, and did he really have to work dirty?
Absolutely not. When most of us became addicted, really we're cracking up. I mean, we're literally holding our sides. It was when he was working out in the valley. He was working at strip joints and working. He was working clean. He wasn't testing the law. See, I think there's a couple of important things that have to be said here. I knew him 15 years or more. One, Lenny Bruce to the liberals, I use that word loosely, is about the First Amendment, the right to the First Amendment. I think Americans should be concerned with all the others. I think that's important. The second thing was, he always said to me, I know I'm like Jesus. Those were his words. I'd say, why? He'd say, because they're crucifying me, and that validates my position. I remember, you know, one of his habits when he was having his legal problems, not his habits, I mean his modus operandi, was that he made nightclub owners pay him every night because he felt they would not take care of him. If they didn't, he'd take all his furniture, you remember, and he'd put it, their furniture, and he'd put it in his car until they paid him. And then he'd let them repossess it, so to speak. So when he'd get arrested for any profanity, the police would come in and sit down, two policemen in civvies, and they'd record his show. And then they'd bust him on the stage if he swore. So he'd take advantage of the one phone call under the law, and he'd call me, and I'd do the show, and I'd get paid, and then I'd go to his lawyer, who would get him out on a writ. Then he'd go back the next night. So I became associated in the popular mind with him. And then they started to record me, the police. They were sitting in the front row with me, and I was recorded 84 times, never arrested. So the reason, overtly, would seem to be that I have a clean act, but the more logical reason would be that I never met a cop who knew what I was talking about. That's what I always figured. Maybe.